Hi, how is everybody?
Good. I know the last time we chatted when I was in Hawaii, visiting my new nephew, and here we are.
And how is that little nephew?
He's
Oh,
good. He's a little bit over a year. He just turned one in March, and now my sister is expecting her second baby.
oh my
Yeah, another
goodness.
boy. So
Oh,
here we go.
well, there's a lot of blue purchases in your future then, all those boys, Tonka trucks and all the fun stuff. Oh, that's great. That's
I know
great.
I'm excited for this one because uh, maybe I'll have another chance to go to Hawaii, but it won't be right at the time he's born because he will be due in December. I already have a
Oh,
couple of events going to, so I might just plan a Hawaii vacation for next year. Fingers crossed.
yeah, maybe in the spring, and then the baby will be a little older and more playful, won't sleep as much. It'll be more fun for you.
Definitely.
And I
All
think
right.
Hawaii's pretty all the time, right?
Definitely. I mean, every time I go there and visit, I don't want to leave. I was like, I need to move there. I want to live there, but the cost of living, and I don't know if I will have a job there, because as a teacher in Hawaii, I will probably live paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah.
not comfortable like I am here.
Right, right. Yeah, a lot of things to consider for sure, for sure. So you look great. I'm glad you've been doing so good and so many happy things are happening in your life.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Nancy, again, thank you for coming back to the Cast Chat podcast to talk about your latest book, To Light the Way Forward, which is a sequel to the first book, The Shell Collector.
Sure. Yes, yeah. Got them both right here. Aren't they pretty?
You and
Oh,
I think alike.
of course we do. We're the cool girls.
Definitely.
It's been a really exciting release for me because we talked last time, the Shell Collector's totally the book of my heart, and I never thought of it as being a series ever. And it wasn't until I saw the Fox original movie based on the book, The Shell Collector, and watched that and saw the actor who was portraying Tug that it like struck me. I was like, oh my gosh, I left this man with no love in his life. And I kind of teased about it with my editor. And when I said that to her, she said, well, then maybe you need to write that story. And so writing To Light the Way Forward, is Tug's love story. So, he's a senior and, you lose the love of your life and you think that's it. And there's a hurricane coming down towards the coast of North Carolina. We're back with Amanda and Paul and the kids. So we're getting to catch up with them again and love them. So that was fun. Plus the kids are a little older, so they get a little bit more fun in the book. And yeah, somebody new comes to town during that hurricane. And it is just a really beautiful story of how unexpected things come in our lives for the right reasons at the right time. So, it's still a lot of the same vibes as the Shell Collector, but not the tearjerker that the Shell Collector was. That story was my healing, and in this story it really is there's some definitely struggles and conflict, but it's a much more upbeat story. So I think everybody will
Definitely.
be happy to walk the beach again.
Definitely. I mean, I read The Shell Collector probably a handful of times, and I read it again when I went to Hawaii for my nephew, and then my mom was like, I want to read that book. She goes, you have to read that book. So she read that book, she really enjoyed that, so I'm going to get my mom the second book. And the second book was really good too. It was not like the first book because the first book was so heavy, so raw, and it was more focused on Amanda trying to
Yeah.
find herself and trying to find her purpose, and she had no clue that she would ever find love again.
Right.
The second book, To Light the Way Forward, it should kind of pinpoint Amanda and Paul's relationship and leading somewhere, no spoilers, but then also pinpoint tongue. I was done
Yes.
with saying that I can read what happened to Tank because the way you wrote about him in the first book with Maeve, I was just like, he almost had her. And
Yeah.
then, so tell me about your process when it comes to writing the second book and how do incorporating Tug's life from young to where he is now, because in that book he struggled with what's his purpose. Why
Mhm.
is he still here? Does he want to keep going in his diner, or does he want to enjoy life?
Yeah, and it was interesting for me because, normally if I'm writing a book and there's a sequel to it, I kind of know where I'm going to go. But in this case, that wasn't, that wasn't the case. When I wrote The Shell Collector, I thought that was the end of the story and that was it. So I had never planned to write another story. So, I knew going in that I wanted to write about Tug. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about him. I'll tell you, Kat, I was nervous though, because The Shell Collector was such a it wasn't my story. It was a made up story, but it was my emotion on the page. And I was a little afraid because to me, that's like the most important book I'll probably ever write in my life. And I hope that if people read one book, it's that one, but it is heavy and it's, heart wrenching, but it's also filling people with hope. I hope, that if when they have to process grief, that they're going to have that little nugget of hope in the back of their head saying, yeah, I'm going to make it through this. And there is going to be hope and healing after this. So when I went into to Light the Way Forward, I had to kind of set that aside and know that this story was going to take a different angle. And I really hope that people that read The Shell Collector and it was such a heavy story aren't afraid to read this one, thinking it's going to be another heavy ride because we can't take but so many of those, in a row. But yeah, for Tug, going back to how he grew up, and he was like the cool surfer dude in that town, all those years ago. And now he's a senior. He's owned that diner forever. He had that unrequited love with Maeve and he'd never been married. He's got that old bird, the wife, but his life has been very steady. There hasn't been a lot of excitement. He hasn't traveled. He hasn't really thought about anything but serving that community, right? So being able to train somebody new in who, is, she's a senior, but she's, redhead and she's perky and energetic and she's living the bucket list. And, she was widowed a couple years ago too, but she's really on her feet. And she's just gone back to town to visit with a high school friend she found on Facebook, and lo and behold, so many other things unfolded for her in that town. So yeah, really neat for me to be able to kind of process out Tug's life and how he might be nervous about those kind of changes or even feel like, oh, this can't happen to me. That's I'm past that. I'm past that point of opportunity in my life. Because you know what, there's always a chance for love.
Definitely, I mean, I love the connection how you like slowly brought Rosemary into the book, and she like Maeve in some kind of way. That was like, okay, we'll see how it goes. But as I was reading, Tug was very reserved, was not so sure. But slowly, Rosemary happened to find a way to like open up a little bit when it's not expecting. So, how to like come up with Maeve 2, Rosemary for Tug? How to like be like that incorporated into the book? And I love how they supported each other with their own struggles because Rosemary had her struggle with her daughter. We will get into that
Yeah,
in a little bit. And Tug,
yeah,
of course, had struggled with moving on, what not.
right, right. Well, and I love too that I think neither one of them was looking for something. This was, something that was just growing and happening on its own. But I felt like where they started feeling a connection and a comfort with each other was in that community service, and that they weren't thinking about each other. They weren't thinking about themselves. They were thinking about the community. And, this community's just gone through this hurricane, and there's cleanup and there's rebuilding, and, things are like that are going on that are critical, and they do absorb your mind. And, the best place for us to put our thoughts are in others, and it takes away, I think, the nervousness and the walls that we put up to protect ourselves, right? So I thought that was a really beautiful way for them to get to know each other. And I love that Rosemary absolutely has some of the spirit that Maeve had, that kind spirit, but they're really different women. So it wasn't like he was trying to replace or fill in something, because you can't, you can't do that. They're not the same. So yeah, I really enjoyed writing it. I did.
Did you have any other, I know the boat book was a little bit connection to do personally because you were dealing with your own grief and trying to move on. Don't you do like a addition or another personal experience writing for the second book? Or was it just like carry on the story from one character into its own novel?
Yeah, this story for me was, I felt like I owed Tug a love story. When I saw the movie, the gentleman who played the role, he played it just like it had been in my head. And when I wrote the Shell Collector, Tug was just a side character. He was the guy who owned the diner, and I just needed him to help get some information across. But as I wrote him, even in the Shell Collector, I liked him more and more, who he was and what he was made of, right? And that's how I ended up giving him the wife as a pet, because I wanted it to be bigger than life, and I just liked him. And so when I saw the movie, the guy played him just like he was in my mind, and he and I had the actor and I exchanged emails even, which was really fun for me. And he got to talk about, how he felt about playing the role. And so when I wrote that story, it was truly to give that character a love story. My heart wanted him to find love. And I wasn't sure how it was all going to unfold, but I knew I wanted somebody energetic, somebody that would be new to town, somebody that would bring in fresh challenges for him, and fresh perspectives, which is sometimes hard, when you're not 30 anymore, right? You've done things the same way your whole life, and now you're suddenly pushing the envelope, and it's really exciting. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that, to put faith in being able to explore something new.
Yeah, because you can find love at any age, whether it's in middle school, high school, college, or in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Who knows? I mean, there's basically love for everybody. It's just a matter of timing. So
Right.
the book was really good, and I liked how there was like a whole bunch of different characters, like what was the boy's name? The one that worked at the diner from the hurricane, like how he was a little bit important helping Tongue and Paul. And then we have Kathleen. Okay.
Yeah,
Rosemary
so
and
Kathleen.
Kathleen. I was a little bit like, you invite a friend to come to your town for a vacation and you have plans, you ditch her. So at the same time, it was really nice because they gave Rosemary time to self-reflect. So tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more about the Rosemary Kathleen dynamic. Why did you bring Kathleen in the book? Was it to shake things up?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny too, because you were talking about somebody who's found somebody from high school, and you don't even really remember those relationships. Like, you remember your memory or piece of it. You don't really know what the real whole picture was. It was so long ago that those things morph in your mind, right? And so when I had her show up to visit Kathleen, in her mind, she's still thinking it's high school Kathleen, right? And you get there, and that's not who it is at all. This woman is, she's grown up, and she's different, and she's wild and crazy. She's just living her big life, and her priorities are really different than Rosemary's. And so I think it's funny. I mean, it's like going to a high school reunion. I just went to mine a couple of years ago, and it's really kind of wild to see how much people change. Like, some of the guys that were like the hot jocks and stuff seem like the nerdy guys now, and some of the guys who were kind of nerdy are like super hot and successful, and and the ones that were outgoing are usually still pretty outgoing and belligerent, but some of the guys who were really shy, like they're really confident. And so yeah, people are so different. And then you walk away wondering, like, am I different than I was in high school? And do they recognize that they're different? I don't know. But seeing that arc in our lives, it's kind of like, I think, why the character arc in novels is so important to us, right? Because we're all changing and evolving with every step in our lives. So yeah, so for that, that was really exciting to me, Kathleen. And I want to, so here's some little inside scoop. So for me, when I'm writing my books, I'm usually working on a couple at a time. So to keep my character straight in my head, I usually do like a big, like a foam core board or a big sticky thing, and I'll put pictures of what I think everybody looks like. So Rosemary, to me, was kind of that perky Mary Lou Henner kind of character, and she's in a lot of the Hallmark movies now, as an older woman. And so she's got kind of that energy about her. Kathleen, for
Mm-hmm.
me, was, oh gosh, and this is like a really big throwback, but back in the day, there was like a rom-com comedy show, half-hour show called Who's the Boss, and had Tony Danza in it, and Judith Light. And Judith Light was a tall and kind of spectacular woman, right? And so that's who I had in my head as Kathleen. So already they were very different. You got this cute, impish, kind of sweet gal, and then you got this, kind of flamboyant, wild, go for it, gal. So that's how I
Definitely.
keep them, and that's how I keep them straight. And that helps me kind of see their personalities when I have them on the board, and I'll write things next to it, and like I gave Kathleen that cat because I wanted to soften her a little bit, because in a way she was kind of rude to just kind of take off. I mean, she did invite Rosemary, but it yeah, I thought, well, taking care of a cat would be perfect, right? Because cats don't need a whole lot of attention. It's not like you have to know how to, feed a parrot or walk a dog. So it seemed kind of perfect and a good excuse for her to be able to stay behind and and start really feeling a part of Whelks Island. And those secondary characters were just as fun this time for me until the way forward. I just finished the third book in the Shell Collector series. So there will be a third one. It's called Home No Matter Where. And so I've been bringing some of those other secondary characters to life over these past few weeks. I just turned it in Sunday. So yeah, I mean, it's been fun. You have Fisher, who was in town and to light the way forward, and had the tackle box, and he's back in the story. And Nina, who was really hard for me to write, by the way. The hardest character in To Light the Way Forward for me to write was Nina. And, she's the daughter, and she's, got a career, she's got a teenage daughter. She's lost her dad, she's had a divorce. And so she's very protective of her mom. And there's this thing, there's this push and pull. And, girls, if you're my age, you're going through it. I am, where, your mom might be in her 80s and, you're in your 50s or 60s, and you feel really protective of them, but they're very capable, And at one point in the book, Nina's like, I'm so sorry that I took, you losing dad as suddenly you not being capable of something. But I think we all make those kind of mistakes, and they're out of love. They're out of a good place. They're out of a kind place. But on the page, I really didn't want her to come across as uncaring, but still be able to show that she was having her own struggles.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was reading about Kathleen and stuff, I was like, and then like you said about high school, I mean, yeah, I agree. There were like a lot of people who were like sweethearts back in high school, and now fast forward 10, 20 years after, like, um, they were together in high school, and now she with him. And
Right.
I
Right.
went to high school. I never would expect those two together and marry him. But you married him, but you were with him in high school. Life. I mean,
It's
that's kind of how
crazy.
life changes. Yeah, but wow, I'm happy for you, But there was
Right.
one couple in my history class. Oh my God, it was like he was more like a class clown, but he
Yeah.
was smart, but he was like a class clown. He was just like me, whatever. And the girl, she was like, she wanted to focus, she wanted to like do the class, she wanted to be like, so she'd always on him, like, come on, you gotta stop doing that. I'm trying to figure this out. Boom, they're married. They've been married.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they were
neat.
high school sweethearts throughout the whole high school, married with I want to say three kids. I'm not sure, but both of our kids go to the same school, so we run into each other. I cannot believe you married that man. She goes,
I
I know I
know.
ask myself that question every single day. I was like, but you did good. So it's interesting how people change from when they were in high school. They could be more loose. They could be more serious, or
Yep.
they could just like completely revamped. I was like, why do? What happened to this person in high school? I grew up, you know.
Right,
So it's
exactly.
really nice with all those characters in the book, especially with Kathleen. Just like she was different in high school. That she was like, whatever, no more youth. And Rosemary, like, I came in here for you. I want to spend some time with you. Bye. You do whatever you want. Just step back. Take care of the task. Do
Yeah,
my
yeah.
own thing.
And then you love it that like Kathleen, and when you live on the coast, in North Carolina in that area, hurricanes are coming every year, and absolutely we take them seriously as we get older. But you've been through enough of them that you kind of know what to do, right? But in her case, like she's ready, but like she's ready to host the hurricane party, but like she's really not all that prepared. She's kind of letting everybody else do everything, right? She's got the neighbor cooking, and they're cooking stuff out of their freezer, so if the power goes out, they're not going to lose all that stuff. And they're, other people are boarding up her windows. It's just like letting things, it's just like instructing, orchestrating everybody else to do all their stuff.
Happening and now with the daughter, Nina. I was there, but I was like, just because she's old doesn't mean she's not capable of taking care of herself. I mean, look at my mom. My mom's out doing these things. I was like, go, mom, you think you can handle it or you could do that, fine. But if you feel like it's too much, just let me know. But she's like all over the place.
I know.
So
I
how
know.
did you like come up with that conflict with the daughter dynamic between Rosemary and Nina? Because Rosemary feels she's old, yeah, but she feels she's capable to make her own decisions. I mean, she's not wrong in the mind yet
Right,
at
right.
the age increasing.
Well, I thought it was a really, I think it was a valid conflict. First of all, when you're watching the news and hurricanes are coming up the coast, that cone of certainty is like this wide. You don't know where it's going to come on board. You don't know, where it's going to hit. And so she had this already planned. She wanted to go, and she was kind of thinking about, well, should I do this? Kind of looking at the weather, and kind of what's pivotal about her making the decision, like, oh yeah, I'm going, was her daughter pushing back and going, you're not going. There's a hurricane coming up, bossing her around, and she was like, nah, and then she was for sure going. And so, but in Nina's defense, her daughter, uh, she's worried. Mom, why are you going where there could be danger in a town that I can't like zip over and get you. It could be a problem. And Nina's never met Kathleen. She's never even heard about Kathleen till now. Excuse me. So yeah, so in her defense, it does feel a little dangerous, and like not very well thought out. So yeah, she is concerned. She goes off the deep end, going back to get her mom and take her home, and that, of course, that didn't fly, but
And then when I got to that point where Nina comes to Whelks Island to like check in at her mom and bring her mom back home, and then that's where Amanda gets involved. I was just like, oh no, okay, Amanda was trying to help, and Nina was just like, you replaced me.
right, right. That's
I was
my
like,
yeah, and that's and
so.
Amanda's really feeling a lot of that maternal feeling from Rosemary. I mean, Maeve's gone, and here, she's kind of building her new life, and they've hit it off. The kids love her, and so yeah, I mean, there's definitely a little eye roll in there.
Yeah, the how to like write that, how to like make it work in the book, and then how to like come up with the short-term resolution. Then Nina started to like open up and just realize, oh, my mom's happy, my mom more relaxed. I don't think I have to worry about her, but she doesn't like how she made the rat. I'm gonna go see my friend this weekend. My
Right,
mother,
right.
have you seen the weather, the hurricane coming? She goes, no, no, I'm gonna go. You never know, because sometimes like a hit or a miss, and you will just get rain, for most part.
Yeah.
So how did the dynamics change between Rosemary, Nina, and Amanda when Nina started to open her eyes and realize?
Yeah, and I think there was a lot on Nina's part, where there were a lot of things going around her that she couldn't control. Not only had Rosemary lost a husband, but excuse me, Nina had lost a dad, right? And even as adult girls, we love our daddies, and losing them affects us. And there's just been a year since she was separated, and she loses her dad, then she gets divorced, and so Nina has really been rocked on too, so it's easy, I think, when you're or my thought about writing her that way was when you've got so much around you that you really can't control, and they're not happy things, that sometimes all you feel like you can control is someone else's stuff. It's not the right thing to do, but sometimes that's what you can lean into, or you do lean into, right or wrong. So that was kind of my thought. And I thought too that it also kind of helped redeem Nina, to give the reader a way to kind of understand her motives, and that, she's just not a mean girl trying to boss her mama around. But I really loved the dynamics, and you'll see Nina and Kendra, the granddaughter, in the new book, Home No Matter Where, and Fisher from the Tackle Box is also in that book. And it's again is more the emotion level of To Light the Way Forward. There's conflict, but there's a lot of joy and hope. There's not a million tears. You don't need the tissue box this time.
Oh, I can't wait for the third book now. I
I know,
mean,
we've been messing around with covers the last few weeks, my editor and I. And yeah, I'm really excited. And it's going to look so pretty next to these books, like on your bookshelf.
yes,
Because
I know. I thought
I'm
that
like,
was
they have
perfect
to look good
because you
this way,
have
they have to look good this.
the house, and then you have the beach and made hat and some shells that I really captured the purpose of the book. And for this one, I really like how you incorporated the lighthouse
Lighthouse,
because
yeah,
you get lost somewhere in life, and the lighthouse with the light beam you to find your way towards it. I can't
yeah.
wait for the third book and the cover and how it will tell its own story from the cover.
Yeah, yes. And they did such a beautiful job. And we went through quite a few. They usually give me 5 or 6 to look at first. And I kind of pick out what my favorites are. And I've already done like this big sheet of all the stuff that, my thoughts about it. So I get those first 6 covers, and there are a couple that I kind of like. And, so we'll kind of talk and be like, ooh, I like this part of this one and this part of that one. And then I loved the lighthouse, but in the original layout of the cover art, there was a red lighthouse, and there's not one red lighthouse in North Carolina. I'm like, okay, I know it's a fake town, but we gotta at least make it black and white. Like it could be in North Carolina.
And there was a part in the book, sometimes I like annotate or make some notes or whatever, but there was really one hallmark part from the book. I'm not sure if you will remember, but it's
It
down,
does.
where was it? It's down, wrote Mary Amanda, she leaned to the bone. I'll keep you updated until others get their bone going. My friend literally lived less than a mile from Paul's prison. I still can't believe we crossed paths and it worked out like that. It's certainly a God wink, is it? That's from a Hallmark movie. Nothing have a chance of working
Yeah.
out or being surprised with each other where things happen at an unexpected time. That's from a Hallmark movie, like the God Wing Christmas or whatever the title was. But
Yeah.
I
And
just
those
had a
that got
Hallmark moment for that. But what's that, Brandon?
no, and no, it wasn't really a nod to the Hallmark movie itself, but that the Godwink is actually a very wonderful writer, and those stories are magnificent. And he's got great collections of Godwink stories, and he speaks around the country all the time. And his name is escaping me at the second, but maybe we can drop it in the comments later. But I have oodles of respect for him and those thoughts, and so yeah, that's exactly how I felt as I wrote it, and I just tagged it right in there. And I love, love, love how Amanda's children are the ones that are the thread that pull Rosemary into the whole story. And that little scene, we're not going to spoil it because I think it's precious. I love that scene so much when they meet. Those little precocious children.
Definitely. I like how the story ended with two wonderful events that happened. I was like, wait, is this actually happening? Really? We should have it, and now this. I was like, something
Did it
have to look
surprise?
forward
Did it
to
kind of
what
surprise
isn't
you? Did it
happening
surprise
more the
you?
turn back.
Yep, yep. And I will tell you this too, my local pastor here, I go to Franklin Baptist Church in my town. And my pastor is wonderful. And while I was writing To Light the Way Forward, and I don't even remember which part of the book it was right now, but I was sitting and listening to his sermon. And as I was listening to it, I was like, oh, this is the sermon that Tug and Rosemary need to be listening to right now. Like it was like for them, it wasn't for me. It was for all of us, but it just felt like perfect. And so after that, I had sent him a note and I said, I am just trying to jot down everything I remember from that sermon. It was so perfect for what I'm writing right now. And I wasn't really asked, my intent wasn't to ask him for anything when I said that. It was more just of a sharing moment. And he was like, I'll send you a copy of the sermon. I'd be happy to help you. It's like, and so yeah, so I kind of put in some of those things early in the book, and then at the end, he gets to do something extra special at the end, and I was really excited to be able to give him that nod, for giving me that little nudge of knowledge, that I got to drop in that story at just the right time. um you never know where those little details are going to come from, who they're going to come from, where you're going to see them. You just got to keep your eyes open.
Definitely, I'm gonna have to read the first and the second book before getting ready for the third book, so I can remember what happened, how it happened, and how we get into them, and then how they going. So that's okay because I always enjoy reading some of the books you wrote and other authors wrote. I will read it over and over and over to not get really thick about it. I remember this part, or I would think differently. I was like, I see why this is happening. Okay.
I wish we could see what was happening in our own lives that quickly. In the book, like we're always like, "Oh, I know why this is happening," but in our own lives, I'm like, "Why is this happening?"
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Uh, I was going to say last night I gave up. I gave in and I subscribed back station just for the movie. I was like,
Yeah.
I have to see the movie. But it's not on Prime, it's not on Netflix, it's not on Tubi, it's not on Roku.
Well, and
Not,
I
I was
I
like,
have been
what about
praying.
people who are not in the military? I mean, I'm just like, I have to see it, so I subscribe it for like 5 hours. I watched the movie. I was like, wait, what? Nikki and Megan wrote the script on the screenplay, and
Crazy.
Natalie wrote the book.
know, I know. And
What?
I love Nikki DeLoach. I love her. And that's her friend, Megan McNulty. They're like best buddies, and they wrote that screenplay together. I had no idea that they were doing it until it was done. And oh my gosh, I was so grateful. That story, the book was so important to me. And when the gal at Fox contacted me, we had worked together on a Hallmark movie. It is how we knew each other. She did my Hallmark movies. And when she called to say, I'm getting ready to make a couple of Fox original movies, we would love to make The Shell Collector the first one. I was so grateful. And she knew how important that story was to me. So usually in that process, you don't get to read the screenplay because, contractually, I've got no say so in it. So it was really an honor. And I really respected that she sent it over to me and she said, I want you to read the screenplay. I want to know how you feel about it. And oh my gosh, I read it. I cried and cried and cried because even the little things like the wife, which a lot of times animals and stuff don't make it into the movie, that had landed in it. The other thing was there was a side character, Chase, and this is kind of a God wink thing for me. There was a side character named Chase in the Shell Collector who I added in at the very last minute. And there was a guy who I knew who wanted me to put him in a book. And his name was Mike. Mike. And he was like, but I don't want you to put me in as Mike in the book. I want to be it's a romance novel name. I want to be Chase. And so he passed away. He died in a car accident. And it was really tragic and sudden. And I was doing my final notes on that book. And I ended up placing him in that story just for that, like the nod. Like he wanted to be in a book. He is going in a book right now. And so I did that. And it made Chase, that character, has a little cameo quickie spot in that movie. And they didn't know that. It was just all the things that were so important to me, the military, the struggles, and how strong our military wives have to be, faith and believing, suspending disbelief when you find a shell that you think is the message for you. Like you have to really suspend disbelief to believe that. So all of those little things were just so perfect in the movie, and in the screenplay, and I just cried. Oh my gosh. And I sent her back a note, and I was getting ready to email her, and then I was like, that is not enough, and I'm just still crying. So instead, I did like a little video and sent it to her of me crying and talking about how much I loved the screenplay. And so she gets it and she calls me and she's like, "You're not going to believe this." I'm like, "What?" And she said, "When I sent the book to Nikki and Megan to read, I got a video from them crying about how much they love the book." So it was funny. All the emotions had really hit. It was the trifecta. It was the perfect, the gal who was heading up the movie, me writing the book, Megan and Nikki's beautiful, wonderful talent coming to the page to create that story. And then the actors, Christopher Russell had always been one of my favorite Hallmark hunks. And I never had him in one of my Hallmark movies, but I got him on this one. So that was super exciting for me. Caitlin Clark is a relatively new actress. I hadn't seen her on anything like on Hallmark or anything before, but she was beautiful and quiet and peaceful and wounded, right? And I got to meet her and spend some time with her. She's a Jersey girl. We got to meet for dinner in New York City, and we still can stay connected, and in fact, she sent me a text this last week. I owe her a call. But wonderful lady. And then Jim Ewens, who played Tug, just, I mean, like if he wasn't living up way on the other side of the world in Canada, I'd probably been trying to date him. He may be married. I don't know, but I loved him so much in that movie.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was like, wait, what? Megan and Nikki, I know. I chatted with Nikki on my podcast, and I know she written the movie, the project with Megan, and she was very like this. And I'm like looking at the name, I was like, wait a minute. Nikki and Megan. So I messaged Nikki, I was like, girl, you didn't tell me that you wrote the script or the screenplay for the child character. That's one of my favorite books, and I'm speaking to Nancy tomorrow, so we're going to be talking a little bit about you. So I want to say both of them did a really great job with writing the movie, the character, and the directing, which was Nicholas Humphreys. The
Yeah,
directing
yeah.
was beautiful. The location, the beach, and every scene, and that it was different from the book. Like I know that she made jams in the book instead of herbs, and Haley was a little bit older than Jackie because in the book it was a
Yes,
little bit. I was like,
I
I don't know
know,
how
I
that
know.
played along, but it worked out perfectly,
It
perfectly.
did. It worked out fine. And they've got to have some creative license to make those things turn out right in the movie. And I understand that. But this is just like one more example. I mean, the Shell Collector novels, I feel so lucky to have had the Shell Collector and now to Light the Way Forward and a third one coming. But there were so many blessings and God winks over this collection of stories because the Shell Collector audio was being taped, the voice talent was being booked during COVID. And Erin Cahill, also a Hallmark actress, is the voice on the Shell Collector. And she was so fabulous. Oh my gosh. And I love her anyway. She is such a beautiful person. And we tried to get her for To Light the Way Forward, and we didn't, but we got somebody wonderful as well. So, yeah, there's just a lot of great blessings that have fallen over these stories. And I'm just so thankful to be able to share them and meet wonderful people and make friends like you through them.
Yeah, definitely. I was just in disbelief for like maybe 10, 15 minutes. I was just like, how did I miss this? But I was trying to get some prep and some background and stuff. I was like, I have to watch that movie because I feel like something's missing. I have to watch it. I was like, watch. I was just like,
I'm so glad you
I hope they're
did.
gonna
And
make
I
a
love
second movie or a third movie. Hopefully, why they have to have the same characters, but I don't know how that's gonna work. But I was just like, amazing. And then
yeah,
right
and I
after the
love
movie
that
ended, I
he had
waited
that.
10 minutes and I canceled the subscription. Hopefully, it'll be out somewhere
Well,
eventually.
I will tell you, Kat, I have been praying so hard that PureFlix will pick it up, because there's God and country and so many good messages in the Shell Collector that I feel like it's such a great home for it. And they are pulling in movies from lots of other networks all the time. So I've been praying really extra hard that they'll pull
I
the
have
Shell.
that, so I can watch it anytime. I
I
have
know.
that.
I love PureFlix. It's my jam.
So after talking about these books, I know you mentioned you're working on a third book. Are there any other books in process besides the third book that's coming in 2025, 2026?
So the third book in the Shell Collector novels will be out like April, May 2026. So about the same time of year these have come out. And then I've got another one called Where We Go From Here, which is also a beach book, totally different though. And that one it's more of a romance than, the family struggles kind of thing. And we've got like an extreme sports kiteboarding guy as the hero, and a woman who comes back to kind of help try to save something in the town. And so that story is done. We're trying to figure out when it's going to come out, but it'll be sometime in 2026. And then I've got a little Christmas book that I'm writing that was inspired by last year, the small town of South Hill, which is about an hour from me, in Virginia on the North Carolina line on I-85. And their Chamber of Commerce had contacted me last year and wanted me to come and do some signings, judge a cookie contest, go to the tree lighting, all kinds of stuff at this big hometown Christmas they were having. And it was supposed to be emulate like a Hallmark movie, right? Oh my gosh, they did a great job. It was so cozy and wonderful. And I will admit that tasting, like 22 different cookies is kind of a bigger job than you realize. And there's a lot of surprises in it too. Like with the ones when you scan them and you first look at them all, and you already know in your head, oh, that's going to be the best. I know it's going to be the best. And that wasn't the case. Some of the prettiest ones had no flavor at all. Some of the ones that looked kind of horrible were the best. So judging the cookie contest was so fun. And I had never physically done that. So now when I write it again, I will have another little bit of inside scoop to add to it, right? But they had all kinds of cool stuff. And I'm not going to tell it all because it's going to end up in the book. So the book is inspired by that hometown Christmas in South Hill. And I'll be releasing it later than a normal Christmas book would come out. I'm releasing it in late November because we're going to kind of really tie it in with their Christmas event that first weekend in December. And they were so kind to me when To Light the Way Forward came out. South Hill contacted me and they said, hey, well, we want to do your book release here. And I said, oh, okay. I've never really done an in-person book release. I always am at home, talking to everybody on social media and, kind of whooping it up that way. And so they have this 100-year-old theater, the Colonial in South Hill. And at that hometown Christmas, they played Christmas Joy on the big screen in that 100-year-old theater. I had never seen my film in a screen that big. It was amazing. And so when I go to town for the book release that day, they take the gal Sandra walks me into the street, and I'm like, what is she doing? But she walks me out into the street in the middle of the little street that runs in front of the Colonial. They had my name, Nancy Naigle, USA Today bestselling author, To Light the Way Forward book release on the marquee at the theater. They took such good care of me. It was such a mind-blowing, like I didn't even know to have that on my bucket list. I didn't know that was a possibility. So I'm really excited to write this story. There were so many. She took me around town. She toured me. They even have a little town of Minnie Pearl in that town where Minnie Pearl used to come in on the train from Tennessee, and she was dating the high school teacher, So she told me all kinds of stories about the area, and I got to meet, the gal who owns the jewelry shop, and there's 3 generations of ladies working in there, and the fun little coffee shop that sells her coffee in those big tubs, like you get your macaroni salad in at the grocery store. And so I was like, that is a bucket of coffee. Anyway, I'm integrating all that kind of stuff into a really special story, really inspired in mostly because I wanted to thank them. But I think everybody's going to love that story. It's very heartwarming and very Hallmarkish, things that you come to
Can't
expect
wait.
in Nagel Christmas.
I can't wait for the exciting book and project you're going to be doing because I'm a huge fan of the writing as well as other authors out there like Lindsay Gibson and
Yes.
Lily Mack. I
Oh,
just read their newest books.
thank you.
I should
Oh,
eat them up. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. So I'm like really inspired about the three of you guys as well as another author too because I'm about this close to finish writing my memoir. I just need to finish my career aspect part of the chapter.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then we'll see what happens. I'm trying to see if I can
Oh,
get a contract with a DAP editor because I feel like it
yes.
would make more sense with me to work
Oh,
with
yeah.
someone DAP and hold a period because we share the same experience, the same voice, or the same vulnerability. So that's my next step. And then who
Oh,
knows?
that's wonderful. I'm so excited, Kat. Have you had Lindsay on yet? Lindsay Gibson? Have you had her on here on
Not
the
yet. I'm
podcast?
hoping to get her on for August because after reading her book, Changing Tides, I was just like, I need to talk to you. I really need to talk to you. That book is just like, I
You
have
will love
characters
her.
in my mind from Hallmark
Yes.
or not Hallmark, and I just have to talk to you. So I'm hoping to get her for August.
Yeah, you'll love her. You'll love her. Yeah, y'all will be really good fun together. She will love you.
Definitely. Well, again, Nasty, I want to appreciate your time and coming back onto the Cat Chat podcast to talk about the child collector to light the way forward. for those people out there, please check out her book and her website. And if you're like me, that you need to see a movie, subscribe for like 5 hours or 10 to watch the movie and cancel. It's only $4.99, by
Whatever
the
it
way.
takes.
So thank you
And
again.
thank you, Erica and Maya. Y'all are just so adorable and lovely. And thank you for bringing a new kind of voice to my voice today.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you, guys.
Love y'all. Thank you. Thanks for having
Bye.
me.